All right, we get another episode of Intellectual Dummies. We have our friend Will joining us again to give us an update on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Will is a former Israeli soldier, and he's here to share with us his knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, some pretty big events have definitely happened in the last about 3 to 4 weeks. First of all, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, of course, of
Appreciate being on
course.
the show. Yeah, so there are some big topics. I'd like to kind of preface that we'll kind of be talking more broader, not just Israel, Palestine,
Okay.
more Israel, Middle East, or the multi-front war that
Yeah, the
Israel.
geopolitics of the situation. Yeah.
Exactly. So I guess I'll just kind of jump right into the highlighted parts of this. There were three major players in the Hamas terrorist organization, as well as the Hezbollah terrorist organization. Three major players that were assassinated by Israel, and their names are Ismail Haniyeh. He was the political leader of the Hamas terrorist organization, whatever the hell political leader means for a terrorist organization. But essentially, he brought in a lot of money. It's just kind of a general note. Um, Also, an assassination on Mohammed Def. This man was one of the key military leaders of Hamas. I'm talking the actual military combat fighting. He would have been probably the guy just under Yahya Sinwar, who is the leader in the operational or military part of the Hamas wing. So that was a very uh, a big player that got
Yeah.
whacked. And another huge player that got whacked for Hezbollah is Fuad Shukr. This man also very similar to Mohammed Def on the military side of things, the combat side of things. He's been there pretty much since the beginning, from the start of Hezbollah, and he had a lot of prominent and important roles for Hezbollah and that whole terrorist organization. So those three assassinations all happened within the last 3 or 4 weeks, and that sends a pretty big message not only to Hamas but also Iran and also Hezbollah. And yeah, that's pretty much what we'll probably be discussing. I got a lot of information, and yeah, so those are the three guys.
Yeah, now I read this morning. Now, was one of those guys assassinated this morning? Because you said a name that I didn't recognize, but I thought I read something this morning that they got somebody else. I could be wrong.
Um, Maybe so. I didn't see anything this morning about another assassination. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, Israel has taken out a lot of military chiefs, a lot of leaders in not only Hezbollah but in Hamas. So that wouldn't surprise me. What I did see today, that maybe is what you're gearing towards. I could also be wrong about this, was the way that Ismail Hania was assassinated, and also
That was the guy in Iran, correct?
yes.
Okay.
So we'll talk about we'll just we'll run through him first. So Ismail Hania, so all right, let's back up a little bit. Um, Ismail Hania was essentially looked at by Israelis as the Osama bin Laden of Israel or of
Okay.
Gaza or Hamas. Out here in the West and most of the Western world, people put that person as Yahya Sinwar, the one who really orchestrated the October 7th attacks, along with Mohammed Death, which we'll get into. But but the truth of the matter is for Israelis and for Israel, Ismail Haniya was the Osama bin Laden. He was the main guy. Ismail Haniya, just to give a little bit of background, he joined or he became the leader of Hamas, or he leaded an office in Hamas during the 2006 elections that they had. Um, he was campaigning for an armed resistance against Israel. In 2017, he was elected as the chairman of the political bureau of Hamas. Again, whatever the hell that means. After that happened, he relocated to Qatar, and that's where he's been ever since. So he's
Yeah.
been just operating out of Qatar, moving in and out of maybe Turkey, uh, obviously Iran. Um, so he was elected in 2017 as the chairman of the political bureau of Hamas. Now, what the political bureau of Hamas really is just an added wing of terrorism. He's essentially just funding all the terrorism, creating deals, under the table, over the table with whoever is ready to be in line with Hamas. So Turkey is a good example of one.
Yeah.
And obviously the other, factions of the Iranian proxies, Hezbollah, the Yemen Houthis. There are certain factions in Iraq or proxies in Iraq as well. So he has been in Qatar, out of Gaza since 2017. He actually had a lot of bad blood with Yahya Sinwar, the leader of the military wing.
Okay.
So, a fact that a lot of people don't know is he was kind of in the dark about the October 7th attacks. Um, he was probably only informed around the same time that Hezbollah was informed that it was going to happen. And Hezbollah was informed only about 30 minutes before it actually happened.
Yeah.
So he really didn't know what was going on. And the reason why is because if Yahya Sinwar and Mohammed Def and these key figures, not only for the October 7th massacre and what started the war, but in a lot of previous attacks, they weren't able to contact Ismail Haniya because if they were, Israel would have heard. Israel would have
I
heard what
see.
was going on and they would have stopped the attack. So they kept things in the dark. Once he found out, then of course he went on to be a spokesman for it and obviously not condemning anything that they did
Or
and
yeah.
being a strong supporter of pay for slay. And one of the quotes actually that he said on October 27th, 2023, the reason why I want to read this quote actually is because I noticed when he was assassinated, there was a lot of news agencies, specifically I'll name the BBC. I believe it was the Washington Post. Um, I don't believe it was Skynet, but there were a bunch of other ones. But the two big ones there, Washington Post, the BBC, they tried to claim or make a claim that Ismail Haniya was the moderate of the leaders.
That's disgusting.
Um, Sorry, I got a little choppy there.
Oh no, I just said that's disgusting. I mean, leave it up to
Yeah,
the liberals to fucking downplay terrorism.
terrorism,
You
exactly.
know?
Exactly. This is a complete anti-Israel rhetoric that I've been seeing
Yeah.
going on. I've been, we'll get into that a little bit on how I can kind of kind of catch them in an aha. All these I don't even know what to call them. All these people that think they're in the right, supporting terrorism. I don't know, but
I call them morons. That's what I call
yeah, all these morons in
them.
the
Yeah,
it's it's pitiful.
yeah,
Uh, but I want to address that these agencies are trying to label him as a moderate, as someone who maybe could have been someone to get to a political agreement or a political solution or anything of the sort, and that is just not the case. I'm going to read a quote that was said by Ismail Hania in on the 27th of October 2023. So 20 days after the massacres of after the massacre of all those Israelis. And this is only probably 3 days after Israel started responding to the attacks, because we
yeah.
know it took them about 2 weeks before they actually started their attack into Gaza. So his quote, and you can find this quote. This is just one of the many that I pulled from. I just wanted to pull this one in specific. He said, translated in English, of course, we need the blood of our women, children, and elderly to awaken our revolutionary spirit. I think that quote kind of summarizes what's going on in Gaza.
Absolutely.
I think that quote, there. I don't want to disregard the amount of death that is happening in Gaza. There is a lot of death that is happening in Gaza, but I would like to highlight the strategy behind Hamas is to amplify the amount of civilian deaths. The political leader of Hamas quoted that 20 days after they started this war.
Wow.
I just encourage people to listen to what the other people are saying and not, focus in on their own wishful thinking.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's what's tough with a lot of people on the left over here is you hear that quote, you hear them chanting death to America, you hear them chanting gas the Jews, and then you got these leftists over here that are saying, but they're oppressed, but they're oppressed. It's like, I'm down for oppressing the genociders. That's fine with me, you know. And I was just reading, when I did my research, this guy, how do you pronounce his name again? Hayenya?
Ismail Hania.
Yeah, so responsible for 40,000 people dying, this guy.
Yeah.
Um, and almost 100,000 wounded. Just this guy, that's what he's responsible for.
Yeah.
But he's a moderate though.
But
He's a
he's a
moderate,
moderate.
you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean it's wild the amount of blood that is on his hands, including this current war.
Yeah,
Um, I am a strong believer that all this blood that's happening in Gaza that's being spilled is 100% on Hamas, and the Palestinian Gazans that support and fight for them.
yeah,
Um, I know that there are plenty that just want to live a good and fruitful life. But when you're dealing with a population of people that don't shed tear for their children when they're killed, they say that they're happy that they've been martyred for the cause. It's just it's a hard thing for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. Um, but for those that can, it's pretty enlightening and eye-opening to the actual uh, severity of the enemy at hand. It's how do you fight an enemy that values death over life?
yeah. I mean, it's a death cult. It's
It is a death.
absolutely a death cult. I mean, I think a lot of the mistake, and I don't mean to keep harping on the left, but this is where it comes from. Um, they assume that everybody kind of thinks the way everyone kind of thinks the same, for the most part, but but it's because they've never studied history, they've never read a book on culture,
Or
their
traveled
culture.
to new countries.
Exactly. Travel to these countries. It's a death cult. When you value dying for your religion more than, or not your religion, your land, whatever it may be, if you just value death more than life, that's a problem. And that's a dangerous ideology. And how do you fight that? How do you fight that? How not only, I mean, let me
How do
rewind.
you win?
I
How do you
I
win?
I know how you fight it, but how do you change it? How do you say,
Right.
hey, wait a minute, that seems like a bad idea. Maybe I won't strap a bomb to my son's chest and then be like, well, he's in heaven now. It's like you strapped a bomb to his chest,
Yes.
you know?
That's a good segue into Mohammed Def, the other Hamas leader that was assassinated a couple weeks ago. Excuse me. Hamas is still trying to deny. And it's funny to me that like I'll get into this more because this is something I want to touch on. But it's funny to me after October 7th, how many people want to take the word of Hamas over the word of a democratic sovereign nation like Israel.
I
It
know.
it's so odd to me. Obviously, everyone lies. Everyone tries to, push their own narratives. I'm not gonna, say that I'll just blindly believe everything that Israel says. I'll do the research. But
Yeah.
when you do the research, it's like 9 out of 10 times they're pretty spot on. I would even go to 9.9 out of 10 times they're correct. And it's hilarious to me when Israel has said, "Yep, we killed this guy, Mohammed Def. We had intel on him where he was going to be. We hit him with 50 tons of TNT on this missile. This dude is obliterated." And Hamas says, no, he's not. And you have the whole Western world is like, we don't know yet. Hamas said this. And it's just so funny to me that you are taking the side of people that put GoPros on their heads, went into another country and used rape as a system, as a weapon of war. There are documented and video proof. All you have to do is search it. But not that I 100% recommend because it's hard to watch, but if you're one of these people, I 100% recommend go search what Hamas did. They made a website of them just murdering innocent civilians, kids, babies. People want to talk about, oh, they didn't behead 40 babies. And this whole came from a Pierce Morgan edit where he said 40 babies were killed and some beheaded. And then we can call it the left, spins that in. They said that Israel said that 40 babies were beheaded and blah, blah, blah. And it's just, they take it out of context, but then they trust the words so hard of these people
Yeah.
that are strapping bombs to their children. So Mohammed Def has been on the Israel's most wanted list since 1995. Mohammed Def was actually the man responsible to transform Hamas's military. So when Hamas was founded in 1987 by the Muslim Brotherhood, uh, they were guerrilla. I mean, for a long time, and up until even you can kind of say up until the last decade, maybe a little bit longer, but they were very guerrilla. Pop out of an alley, shoot a couple RPGs, pop back into their
Yeah.
tunnels. Very not militarized.
Yeah.
Mohammed
Yeah.
is the one responsible to make Hamas a military. He's the one that trained them. Not only did he train them, but he had huge uh not pull, but he was a huge figure for a lot of suicide bombings. So even the kids in the second Intifada, so even the kids that we're talking about that were strapped up by with the suicide vest, that was designed by Mohammed Def, and this is a man that has been on, like I said, the most wanted list for 20 years, and even over 20 years. He was the head of the Al-Qassam Brigade, the special forces of the Hamas in 2002. So this man, Mohammed Def, was also a very, very prominent figure in the Hamas militarized terrorist organization. So to be able to take out Mohammed Def in Gaza and also to be able to take out Ismail Haniyeh in Iran sends a pretty big message of we don't respect Iran's military capabilities or defense capabilities
Yeah.
whatsoever. And they send a message to anyone who wants to be the next guy, the next Mohammed Def, the next Ismail Haniyeh, send a message to them of Israel's everywhere. You're not safe anywhere.
Yeah, you're not safe in the capital city of Iran. That's got to
In
be
the
the
cap
most badass move ever.
so
Absolutely.
you know how they did it? It wasn't a rocket. It wasn't a missile.
What was
Uh,
it?
so about 3-ish months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, it I'm not 100% sure it was Ismail Haniyeh or another leader of Hamas. I think it was Ismail Haniyeh. We can fact check that one, but there was a leader of Hamas that went to Iran in about 3 months ago. Um, and they put him up in the essentially the presidential suite in their most secure hotel in their capital city of Tehran.
Uh,
The Mossad, the Israeli Secret Service or whatever you want to call it, the
uh,
bad spies, whatever, they they figured out what room that was, and they planted a bomb in that room 3 months ago, and they just waited until Ismail Haniyeh came back to Iran, and they waited until they had 100% surety that he was in the room. He was in the room with his security guard, and they hit the button. It was a planted bomb
that's awesome.
in the capital of Iran on the day that the new Iranian president was inaugurated.
Wow.
This is a message, a hard message to Iran. Um, so Israel on October 8th or October 9th or October 13th, they promised the Israeli public that they will kill Ismail Haniyeh and they will kill Yehia Sinwar. And they delivered on that promise for 50%. So that's a pretty big statement to the Iranian government of you can think that you have your most protected guy protected, and he is not. We didn't even come after you. We came after who you were watching over.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty strong message, and that's a big shakeup now in the Middle East, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when the Iranian prime minister went down in that helicopter crash a few months ago,
Mhm.
that was suspect. I wonder if that was something nefarious going on there, and they kind of like, we can't let this get out. What do you think about that?
I think mistakes happen, but in that part of the world, it it's hard for me to believe that that was just a mistake,
Yeah,
uh, and that or a faulty helicopter or whatever. It's hard for me to believe that that part of the world is very, very corrupt, and that Iranian regime has its freaking claws in everywhere.
yeah,
So I wouldn't be surprised if, yeah, if that was some kind of plan.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think so. I think something because it's like, dude, you're the prime minister. Now I know the prime minister or the leader over there um, doesn't mean it essentially doesn't mean shit because there's like a cabal of religious leaders that really run the country, so it doesn't really matter who's president.
right, he's just a face.
Exactly. He's just the face to be like, oh, there's going to be change, but there really never is any change. It's the same
Right.
old shit, different day. But it's like the president, you're not going to travel around in a shoddy helicopter. You know, I mean, they got money. You know, they got the state of the art shit. You know, and I know that that region is very mountainous, but it's like, come on now, you expect me to believe that shit?
Especially with what's going on. Like,
Exactly. See, to me, like I don't like I when a coincidence happens like that, oh, there just so happens to be a war going on and all this pressure from Israel to Iran, Iran to Israel and stuff like that. Oh, one of the guys just so happened to die in a helicopter crash. Well,
uh,
I don't
it's
know about
it's
that.
it's like, yeah, it's just too compact. And
Exactly, exactly. You know, too when there I don't I mean I believe in coincidences, but like in these situations I just like no, that's something happened there. I'm too much of a conspiracy theorist to think anything else, you know?
I think it's, I am I never I think it's a good thing to ask questions always.
Absolutely.
And when you're in a in a place in the world and like where the Middle East is, and now with all cameras everywhere, you see anything, it's yeah, there's too much happening for you to not raise an alarm of this seems fishy. I
Yeah.
mean, you could tie it right back into the United States, the whole Donald Trump assassination. There are so many things
Too many coincidences there.
that to pull it back to the Middle East. So, a couple, you know, so one of the big questions that I'm sure a lot of people are asking themselves or trying to figure out with these recent assassinations in Iran and I mean in Beirut, we haven't even talked about Fuad Shukr, we'll get to.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'd like to just stay on Hamas and the Palestine, Gaza, West Bank area for now. But the biggest question I'm sure people probably have is, does this ruin an opportunity for a ceasefire deal or a hostage deal? Um, at first, I would have said yes. At first, I would have said 100%. There's absolutely no way that Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, any new leader or anything is going to even consider having a hostage deal um, after the death of their leader. Like that was my original thought. I thought that this operation, as badass, as ballsy, as a smack in the face to all these proxies that just want the death to Israel and Iran. Um, I originally thought that this was a fuck it, we don't care about the hostages. We're doing what we're doing, and we're just gonna hopefully find all of their dead bodies when we finish out in Gaza. That was my original thought.
Yeah.
After doing some research and doing a little bit of reflection, I've come around to another thought that this actually, depending on how the government of Israel plays it, this really could be an amazing opportunity to get the hostage deal, to get a ceasefire, um, and to start focusing on the real the real issue that Israel has to deal with, which is Hezbollah and Iran. The Houthis, yeah, I'm not as worried as with the Houthis as I am with like Hezbollah and Iran. Um, Not that the Houthis aren't a problem, but they're far away. And from what I've, learned, the Houthis are not Iran's favorite or number one proxy. They're kind of new. They don't really like they sure directed them to send a drone into Israel, but I'm pretty sure they didn't direct them to interfere with trading in the ships and in the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. So they're a little problematic.
Yeah, I mean, them interrupting the trade on the Red Sea. I mean, we all know how much global trade goes through there. That's a good way to get everyone in the world's heads to turn and be like, "What's up, bitches? What you doing
Yeah,
over there?"
yeah,
Yeah. So I can see them kind of being more of like a ragtag,
yeah.
just
Kind
bunch of
of
guys who's like, "Who wants to give me money?" I don't know.
exactly, exactly. So, but why I think that this could potentially be good for a hostage deal slash ceasefire. Israel just assassinated the number two military guy in Gaza, and then the number one guy for Hamas in Iran. They've completely disabled the capabilities militarily for Hamas to pull another October 7th type attack for the next 2 years at the very least, in my opinion. Um, they're they're they've beat Hamas so bad that there's internal pressure in Hamas towards Yahya Sinwar to push for a ceasefire deal. So, and obviously the infrastructure is rubble. So they've kind of eliminated the threat of Hamas um, to pull something like they pulled on October 7th. Of course, there's still rockets every day. There'll be, some little skirmishes here and there, like it kind of had been for status quo, other than the other big conflicts. But it's an opportunity now for Israel to declare victory in Gaza. We took out your number one on political, we took out your number two on military, and your number one in military is so far into Gaza, it takes about 5 days, 5 to 6 to 7 days for him to even communicate. So the thing
Really?
is, yes. So
Wow.
you and I knew about Ismail Hania being assassinated probably 2 days before Yahya Sinwar ever even found out. He can't use communications because Israel has destroyed communications.
Uh,
He can't use satellite because if he does, then Israel will find him. So he only can do it by having a messenger going up and down the tunnels in Gaza. So this is the this is the leader right now, and he's in a pretty shitty spot.
yeah.
Um, he probably has some of the only hostages left alive. My thoughts are he probably has around five-ish hostages, 5 or 6 hostages with him at all times, the healthiest ones, so that he can probably try to use them as a bargaining chip so he can make it out alive of this war.
I wouldn't
That,
doubt it if that's where the Americans are. I mean,
yeah,
because that's a pretty big, like, not to value some hostages over other hostages, but like,
American.
you definitely don't want to piss America off. I mean,
Especially if
yeah.
this war goes through November, and if Donald Trump is president, that is not good for Gaza
Oh,
or
yeah, absolutely not.
or Palestine or any of those places, because Trump will let Israel do what they have to do to defend themselves, which is what Biden should have done. If he had done that, this war would have not been a war of attrition. This war would have been over within 4 weeks. Um, there would have been so much less civilian death, but
Yeah,
Biden was playing towards votes. The left with the crazy outcry of ridiculousness, and so there was a lot of factors that drew this war out to be a war of attrition, which is not something Israel ever wants to do. Um, their wars needs to be quick and efficient. They need to be in and out. This is actually what Ben Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, said in 1948, that Israel's wars cannot go long. They have to be quick. And so I put a lot of blame on the Biden administration for how they undermined Israel, their number one ally.
Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah, I know. Slow walking weapons, not only slow walking weapons, but weapons that would reduce civilian casualties. I'm not sure if we mentioned that on the previous episode that we did, but they're targeted bombs that would, the explanations in the definition, targeted bombs. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, and it's under the guise of, they claim it's under the guise of virtue and they care about the Palestinian people, but all you're doing is creating more death, but
Yeah, if you can't use a targeted bomb, that means you're using an untargeted bomb, which is the definition of indiscriminate bombing, which is what Hamas and Hezbollah do. I mean, Hezbollah has targeted bombs as well. Hamas did. They're probably all out of them now. Um, if you want Israel to use untargeted bombs, okay, then we will see what carpet bombing looks like.
yeah, exactly. It's going to get done one way or the other. You
Mhm.
can't, we went through the experiment of, or Israel went through the experiment of letting the Palestinians, have their freedom and
Oh,
do whatever they want. And this is what the world got,
right.
So unfortunately, unless there's a drastic change in ideology, that place needs to be occupied until
Yeah.
further notice.
Yeah, and like at least that place needs to be occupied by Israel. I'm sorry to
Yeah,
say it,
absolutely. Absolutely. And nobody
It's
else
not
will
what I
do it
want.
too, right?
No one will do it. Who would? And even if they did, how can Israel trust them?
Yeah.
Like, I understand that Egypt and Israel have a peace treaty, and that's like absolutely critical for the Middle East, and that's a big reason why they don't let Palestinians in. But there's also about 40 tunnels going from Gaza into Egypt, so that's kind of like one of those things. Like, if Egypt was going to be the player, it's like all he has to do is just sign it, get a check, look the other way, and then more smuggling goes in. I mean,
Yeah.
so much uh weapons smuggling was through Egypt. Not I don't want to falsely claim that it was the Egyptian government, but I'm sure I bet they knew about it,
Yeah.
like
No,
it's,
they definitely know. They definitely know.
yeah, how else do they?
How are these Hamas fighters getting into Turkey for medical treatment? They're
Yeah,
not going through Israel,
definitely not going through Israel.
so yeah,
It's it's
sucks.
it's uh it's psychotic, but it's an opportunity. So to pull it back, I think it's an opportunity for Israel to declare a victory in Gaza and to offer concessions. So I think they've done a lot. They've disabled the military capabilities of Hamas performing another October 7th like attack. Um, they took out leaders that probably put in a lot of fear for new people to become leaders. Like, I don't want to be a leader. If I go to Tehran, I'm going to get bombed in a hotel. Why would I want to?
Yeah,
Right? So I think there's some concessions that can be made. So one of the concessions that was kind of holding off Israel from accepting a ceasefire deal or a hostage deal was Israel had to completely, unanimously, 100% pull out of Gaza. I think that's a concession that can be made now. You can obviously, if they're going to rocket you, rocket them right back. Um, Pull out of Gaza. Why not? You can go in and do little operations when you need to, but there's no reason to stay there. I
yeah,
think that's a concession to be made. I think and I think that was a big one because the Gazans, to the Hamas, Israel pulling out of Gaza is a win for them. They're, oh, they come out of the tunnels like, oh, we're still here, we're strong, blah, blah, blah. But in the retrospect, if Israel declares their victory, I mean, I'm sorry, like you crawling out of an ant farm doesn't really seem much of like a win to me.
Yeah,
So
especially when all the civilians are all fucking bombed and mangled. They're like, "Hey, how you guys
yeah,
doing? Nice and fucking fat, and
yeah, you want a power bar?
yeah, yeah. You know all that aid that the U.S. fucking shipped over
Crazy.
here that we stole. I think when they were doing that, what is it called? When one of the guys who was responsible for building that dock that just fucking failed,
Yeah.
that brought all the aid into Palestine, because again, these
Uh,
leaders are trying to be so virtuous. I'm pretty sure zero of it went to
Zero.
like literally zero.
Zero.
Um,
It went to like a little holding area near the beach, and it stayed there because the UN was like, we're not going to bring it into the Palestinians. We're going to get killed by Hamas. And Israel's like, why would we do it? Like they're our enemy.
yeah, yeah,
And then the US is like, well, we're not going to do it because we would get killed by Hamas. So we're just going to leave it here. Like it was an absolute political move by Joe
yeah.
Biden.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Absolute. And you know what? I'm not gonna fault him for it. That was a solid move. Like politically, I did nothing for him, but shit, you gotta don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah,
He made a solid chess piece. What he thought was right. I'll bring aid and I'll win the Muslim vote by doing that.
yeah,
It was a good idea.
yeah,
It didn't do shit for anybody. The funny thing about the aid was there were a few videos. They stopped making these videos because I think they realized they were self-incriminating. But they had a lot of Gaza influencers, on social media.
I've seen those. I kind
And
of
then
know, I'm not gonna lie, but go on.
yeah, he'll come in and be like, "So this is what I got for my this is he'll say like, so this is what I just bought for my military aid or for my humanitarian aid." Can we just dissect that sentence real quick? This is what I just bought.
Yeah,
Humanitarian aid is not, there's not supposed to be a price on humanitarian aid. You're supposed to be given humanitarian aid. So, what does that tell me just by that first sentence? That tells me that Hamas took over the aid and sold it to you. That's all. That's literally all that you're saying right there. And then he's like, "Oh, I ate a power bar and a peanut butter," and then tries to be like it's Israel's fault. I'm like, you just incriminated yourself by saying you bought humanitarian aid that was supposed to be given to you for free. Who sold it to you?
yeah.
Who sold you that? Uh, I'm a little confused.
It's funny because I actually follow this one girl. Again, I see a lot of these influencers on Instagram too. They're all in my feed. They're all in my algorithm because that's what big tech's liberal, and of course I want you to see that. But I follow this one girl who will say stuff like "Stop the genocide. This is horrible," and then I'll just comment, "Not a genocide," and you just see the people. Um, Dude, the
Lose their
comments
mind.
blow up, dude. They blow up. And at one point I commented, "Hey, I'd like to hear the thoughts on what this girl thinks about Hamas. I'd like to hear a video on that." And you would have thought that I said the most horrible thing. I can't believe it. You fucking said, and then and now they're all requesting to follow me. I'm like, I'm not trying to get murdered, so you're not following me. But but it's insane. It's like, don't believe your lying eyes. She's probably there chanting death to America and death to Israel too. Now, as we talked about before, that's their charter.
Hmm.
You don't have to dig very far to find that video.
Right.
And, you know, there's no equivalent to that on the other side. I don't see Israelis, excuse me, I don't see Israelis chanting "Gas the Palestinians," death to all Palestinians. I don't
Right.
see that. I don't see the indiscriminate, malicious murder. Hey, did a bomb maybe got dropped in the wrong spot because Joe Biden fucked that up as we were talking about before? Yeah, you know what? That probably happened. That's tragedy. That's war. But you don't see. I have yet to see the video of Israeli soldiers going into a music festival and mowing down kids.
Hmm.
And you're like, oh, well, they don't have the technology. They're all over social media. The cameras are there. You
Yeah.
can totally catch that video. If you can took all the Israeli soldiers are over there. You guys apparently all have cameras because you're on my fucking social media feed. Find me that video and change the world's mind. But you
Right.
can't because it doesn't exist.
Right.
Simple as that.
You can find videos of soldiers, of military commanders, of right-wing prominent voices that do say those kind of that kind of slander. I don't agree with it. There was like one that was like we should just nuke them or something like
Now,
that.
that was after October 7th, right?
Sure.
So after October 7th, I can totally see people getting riled up
Getting riled
and
up with some
saying stuff
revenge.
like that. But
The
that's
dip-
not a common threat.
it's not a common threat, and the difference is I look more at action rather than words. You know, I can use other examples, but we'll just stick with the Middle East. Israel, sure, there have been people that said something like we should just nuke them, or we're gonna what's the word? We're gonna resettle Gaza, and it's gonna be a majority Jewish again. Do you see any of that happening?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, you
no.
don't.
But on the other side, you have political leaders like Ismail Haniya, you have Mohammed Def, you have Yahya Sinwar saying things like, "We're going to murder every Jew that hides behind a tree." That's in their charter. So that's a line that's in their charter. We will chase down every Jew to the end of the world hiding behind every last tree. That is in their charter. It's like in section 11 or something. Um, I was at the Nova Site Music Festival um, memorial, and I can personally tell you how many um, things like cuts in trees, still blood that was on trees of
Wow.
Jews hiding behind trees because they were unarmed and they were being massacred. They literally followed through on their charter. It's just you sure people can say things and people won't be like, oh, words are violence. Violence is violence. If someone says that we were going to track down every single Jew hiding behind a tree and kill them, and then you have on October 7th something like 400 kids hiding behind trees being slaughtered. I mean, they are following through with what they're talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
This this is and this is what I follow. I follow the actions, not the words. Sure, the words can rile up some people and stuff like that, but I follow the actions, and the actions behind of what they say, they do. The actions behind what we say, which is things like kill Ismail Haniya, yeah, we do. But things like nuking Gaza or resettling Gaza, that hasn't happened. In
yeah,
fact, we pulled out of Gaza in 2006 forcibly, 10,000 Jews. So they've done the opposite of what
yeah.
things have been said. So it is. It's wild. I want to switch quickly to because I also want to be respectful of your time. Um, I want to switch quickly to Hezbollah and Fuad Shuker,
Yeah.
the one who was assassinated in Beirut.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. Go on.
This is very interesting, this whole situation. Hezbollah mentioned at the start of the war that if they hit Beirut, they being Israel, Hezbollah will hit Tel Aviv. And we all know Hezbollah has 160,000 rockets pointed at Israel.
Yeah.
So Israel went ahead and bombed Beirut and they assassinated Fuad Shuker. Fuad Shuker is a lot like Mohammed Def. He's on the designated global terrorist list. He was actually responsible or partly responsible for the 1983 Beirut barracks bombings. I don't know if you know what that is, but in 1983 there was big bombings on the U.S. Embassy, and they
Yeah.
killed 241 U.S. Military personnel, including a lot of Marines. It also killed 58 French military personnel.
Yeah.
That is a and then that is a first of all, that's a huge amount of death for a bombing.
Yeah.
That's like for one for and then to be designated by the United States and globally as a terrorist. So he's been with Hezbollah since the 1980s. They were founded in the 1980s by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Something that people don't realize a lot is Iran didn't create Hamas. Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Iraqi proxies. Iran didn't have a lot of money. It wasn't really till the Obama administration that they made deals, got a lot of money, and then were able to fund more. But it wasn't really until, yeah, about, after 2006 in the Lebanese War, the second Lebanese War in 2006 with Israel, that Iran started sending, people in to start taking over. So those are some things that I just like to kind of point out, just like real briefly, is that Hezbollah was founded in the 1980s, not by Iran. They were founded by Lebanese. Okay.
Yeah.
Hamas was founded in 1987, not by Iran, by the Muslim Brotherhood, by Palestinians. We can't forget these things. Iran didn't create this. The Palestinians created Hamas. Okay, so when people try to say that, oh yeah, Hamas and Palestinians are not the same, they're very much in the same fabric, and
Yeah.
I am not afraid to say this
Yeah.
uh, at all. They work very closely together, and I am happy to say this and give more and more examples of how. But I think the fact that Hamas was created in 1987 by the Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine, I think it's fair enough to say that Palestinians created Hamas. But moving back to Hezbollah, so they promised that if they get bombed in Beirut, they will bomb Tel Aviv. They got bombed in Beirut. So obviously Israel is preparing for a big attack by Hezbollah and for rockets to reach Tel Aviv. I know this firsthand because I have a lot of family, I have a lot of friends. I speak with them every single day, and every single day they tell me that they're just adding more and more stuff into their bomb shelters: water, toilet paper, food, blankets, portable air conditioners, pillows, things to be ready to be in a bomb shelter for a good amount of time. The thing that is really a floating question right now is, what will the response be? Will it be another escalation, or will it be more of the status quo? I would like to preface or point out the absolute restraint all sides have put on themselves for a war. Over 8,000 rockets have been shot into Israel by Hezbollah since October 8th, with multiple deaths and injuries. To me, that you don't even need to get to 8,000. Get to 8 rockets, and that is an act of war. We're at war. You shoot 8
Absolutely.
rockets at me, we're at war. 8,000? oh, we're at war. But there hasn't been a full all-out war yet with Hezbollah in Israel. So Israel has shown an immense restraint of not just taking it to Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the same thing. There's been hundreds of commanders in Hezbollah that have been killed by Israel, targeted, designated attacks. If one of your commanders gets killed, that's an act of war. However, you don't see this happening. Iran in April shot hundreds of drones and rockets and missiles into Israel after the assassination of one of their people. People like to say, "Oh yeah, no, they were using old rockets. Like they weren't really trying to cause damage." Are you fucking kidding me? Is that they just shot hundreds of rockets and hundreds of drones into Israel and they didn't have bad intentions? They had bad intentions. Get the fuck out of here with that. They're humiliated. They shot hundreds, and then a day or two later, Israel shot one rocket, hit their target, a military installment in Iran, and fucking leveled it. And there was actually a lot of Iranians in the Iranian regime that were impressed. They were like, "That's pretty crazy. Like we didn't even get one hit, and they shot one rocket. We didn't even have a siren to warn us, and they hit their target and they blew it up. Shit, like
Yeah.
that's also war starting. Let's not forget the Houthis, doing what they did, and Israel bombing the shit out of the port of the Yemen Houthis. Like, so the lingering question is, how is Iran going to respond? First of all, we know Hezbollah will respond. We don't know how. The best thing that could happen, honestly, I don't know. I don't know what the best is. I don't know what the solution is because I believe that there is an inevitable war with Hezbollah. It's going to happen at some point. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's a organization that has vowed the destruction of Israel. That's literally all they care about. If Iran decides to join in with Hezbollah on a strike, this is going to be devastating.
Uh,
Because what that means is not only will they send hundreds and maybe even thousands of rockets over Iraq, there are proxies in Iraq that they will have shoot their missiles. Hezbollah will rain down thousands upon thousands of missiles, and you have the Houthis that will be shooting missiles, and you also have Hamas. This is like a six-front war
yeah.
against Israel. This could be horribly devastating. Now, if that does happen, they are probably aware, maybe a lot of people aren't, but Israel will unleash their fury. Israel has multiple submarines in the water, opted with nuclear warheads that no one knows where they are. No one has any idea. Okay? Iran knows this. So there are deterrents, but the fact that Iran got humiliated now twice in such an incredible fashion, the Middle East, you have to show strength. It almost seems like there's almost no other option than just joining in and just raining down rockets. So I truly believe, maybe not truly believe, but I believe in a big possibility that we are going to see some seriously wild shit on our television screens in the Middle East. Some really devastating shit. And I will vow that if that were to happen, Lebanon will get sent back to the Stone Age, like Israel promised it would if it does.
Yeah.
Iran will be a mess. The Yemen Houthis will be in a world of hurt. I don't even think they would waste their time with the proxies in Iraq. So, and then pretty much basically what I'm getting at is the proxies, the Iranian proxies, all of that, they have been in restraint because they know that if they were to attack Tel Aviv in such a way that gives Israel the green light to take care of business. So I really think that it's either going to be some crazy shit that we're going to see bombs going over countries, or we're just going to see some bombs hit kind of near Tel Aviv from Hezbollah, and we're just going to go right back to the status quo. That's what I believe will be the either one of those will be the outcome of these
Yeah,
assassinations.
I can totally see like the response being like, yeah, we fired a bunch of rockets in response, and none of them really hitting anywhere of significance. And then being like,
Right,
yeah, see what we did, and we're like, all right, well, we
right,
understand that you had to flex your muscles after that, otherwise you'd look like a bitch.
right, right,
So it was just a big propaganda push at that point. Like, yeah, well, we fired some rockets back, so we retaliated, you know. But
right.
I really do. I'm thinking that Israel's probably just trying to clean up Gaza before they put anything else on their plate. They're probably waiting for the next U.S. election
Hmm.
because if it's Donald Trump in office, that's going to turn the tides significantly.
It'll be a lot more
Significantly.
quiet. It'll be a
Yeah,
lot more quiet.
yeah, you know. So I bet you that's definitely going to be a thing. And what I hope, because I know Israel's made a lot of concessions since its founding. I mean, I know they gave the Sinai Peninsula back to Egypt. I know
Hmm.
they gave land back to conceded land to Lebanon as well, right?
Yep. Yep. To the West Bank, to East Jerusalem, to
Yeah,
Gaza.
yeah. So I hope that they, at least in the Hezbollah case, I hope Israel's like, you know what, we're taking that shit back. You know,
Yeah.
we're taking it fucking back. You know, so I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I think that shit's either gonna pop off very soon, or I mean, pop off more,
You're
uh,
right. Right.
because all our enemies all around the world either have to do it now, whether we're talking about China or whatever it may be. They have to do it in these next few months, or because they have to do it before potentially a Republican gets in office.
Yeah.
Because Donald Trump, as soon as he gets in office, he's going to be swinging his dick around.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
He's got nothing to lose anymore. It's his last term. Doesn't have to worry about reelection.
Hmm.
So
And
that's my hope. I'd like to see Israel, you know, get some land. Because it's bullshit that you guys had to fucking concede land in the first place.
I never agreed with it. I
Yeah,
honestly, doing my history searches and stuff, they should, yeah, they should have never given back land. They should have
yeah,
never, when they took the Sinai Peninsula, when they took, you know, West Bank, the Galilee, they should have said, no, sorry, you started a war with us. You can live here as a citizen if you'd like, but you're not getting territory. It's
yeah,
just not.
yeah, yeah,
It's unfortunate that they just tried to be too democratic in a world or in an area that does not give a shit about that. Um, that's what happens when you try to play to the people, when you try to play to the outside world. Israel has enemies that it needs to deal with in a certain way that no one else can understand. And as you said before, there's just so much belief that people over there or other parts of the world think the way that we do over here. And there was just too many mistakes that were made. Yeah, it's
yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
yeah, I will say one more little piece of fact that I did a little bit of investigation on. So for all the haters out there, for all the pro jihadists and all that, the ones that try to take the narrative that Hezbollah, when they denied that their rocket was the one that hit Majd al-Shams and killed those 12 children and injured another 24 on that soccer field. I just want to go ahead and just stump all those idiots that are trying to believe a terrorist organization and denying it. They shot 8,000 rockets into Israel. you're bound to miss one. I don't think that they targeted the soccer field, but they sure as shit missed. That rocket was a Falak 1. A Falak 1 is an Iranian made rocket that only Hezbollah uses. They don't give them to anybody else. So I just hate hearing people deny or back Hezbollah saying we deny that. Of course they denied it. You just killed 12 children in Israel. You gave them
Yeah.
the green light to go whoop your ass. In 2006, after the Second Lebanon War, Hezbollah came out and made a statement. They said, if we had known Israel was going to respond in the way that they did, we would have never attacked. It's the same thing now. And I just have to put in, there was a UN investigation on that rocket, and it has been concluded that it was done by Hezbollah. So I just want to put that out there for all you pro-jihadists, for all those people that just believe Hamas and Hezbollah to the T. You're wrong.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. And we'll do another update episode soon when there's more information.
For sure.
But yeah, thank you for coming on. Like and subscribe. And thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.